Okay, welcome to session 11. So in this session, we are going to discuss on exception handling and its fundamentals and how we are going to use the try-catch form to handle exception and even how we are going to make use of multi-catch blocks. Fine. So now when I'm going to talk about exception handling, so usually exception handling is what the error causes at the runtime. Fine. So when you talk about any programming language, usually you will come across different types of errors. So starting from the logical error, the syntax error, and what we are going to call now it as a runtime error. So now what are the runtime error which occurs during the execution? We call this as exception handling, or we call this as exception, and the mechanism what we will now inherit, or the mechanism what we are going to try to handle such runtime errors, we call this as exception handling. And so now when I talk about runtime error, so just to put some in form of example, I will just give you two standard examples which you might have encountered while performing any C program execution or while performing any C++ execution. Yes, now just look at this runtime errors. For example, I'm just going to have a demo program here, and I'm just going to say int a equals 10 and b equals 5, and look at the result. A equals result equals a divided by b, and I'm going to print the result. So this program works fine, and I'm going to get the output as 2, as it is 10 divided by 5 is 2. And so now just look at this modified program, the same program what we have modified. Now this program executed without any error, that is without any runtime error, and so no exception was arised here. There was no any exception, hence no handling is required in such scenario. But just look at this example now. Intentionally I have made b equals 0, and when I say result equals a divided by b, it is 10 divided by 0. Now what is 10 divided by 0? Yes, it is undefined. The value is undefined. And so now whenever the value is going to be undefined, or whenever you try to divide something by 0, that is where the runtime error is going to occur. The runtime immediately occurs and your execution stops. Immediately your execution of the program is going to terminate, and you are going to have this statement is not executed. This statement will be not executed because the execution control is completely terminated as soon as you got a runtime error or you got an exception. Hence, so now you are going to end with a divided by 0 error as a runtime error. And this is one example where you are going to get an exception when you try to divide by something 0. Now the second standard example is, just look at this program. In this I have defined an array of the size 3, and I have initialized the values as 1, 2, 3, which is going to create an array of the size 3 by putting the 3 values, and starting from 0 less than 3, that is when the value of I is 0, so a of 0 is printed as 1, a of 1 is printed as 2, a of 2 is printed as 3, and when the value of I is 3, the loop will come out of the execution and the end of execution is going to occur. Hence, there is no even any exception in this case. But just look at this modified code here. I am going to have the same array with the same initialization, but just look at this loop now. In this loop, I am going to say I is less than 4. So now the loop will go until the value of I is 3. Now what happens when I is 3? When I is 0, I am going to get the output as 1. When I is 2, for I is 1, I am going to get the output as 2. And when the I is 2, I am going to get the output as 3. And when the value of I is 3, the loop is still true. I will enter the loop, and now I am saying a of 3. Now what is a of 3? The a of 3, there is no memory location. Right now I have encountered array out of bound. The array bound was from 0 to 2 because the array size was 3. Now I am trying to access a memory of an array which will literally take me out of array bound. Hence, at this point of time, I am going to encounter runtime error called as array out of bound error, and this is an exception again. So the two standard runtime errors which we can easily understand, which we can easily try to handle, and this is what we call this as runtime error. That is what we call this as exception in Java program. And now we will see how exactly this exception can be handled in Java program. Hence, for this case, when I say exception handling, so it is a runtime error. So now I need to understand how exactly this should be handled. But before that, few fundamental things what we need to understand. So a Java exception is an object. It is an object which describes an exceptional condition. If it is divided by 0, so an exception is encountered, and it is encountered as an object now. That is what we say. When an exception occurs, exception object is created. If divided by 0 exception is occurred, we are going to create an divided by 0 exception object. If an array out of bound error is occurred, we are going to create array out of bound exception object. That is what, depending upon exceptional condition, the respective exception object is created. And once this is created, the exception object is thrown to the method, and the method which had made this exception to occur, the exception object is thrown to that method. So now this method can take the decision whether it can handle by itself, or the exception object what it has got, it can pass on to some other process or some other method. Hence, if it can handle itself, it can print some message, or by default it can make sure the execution is going to terminate immediately. And if the object is passed on to some other method, that is where this method is going to throw the object to some other method, and that exception object is caught by the exception handler. So fine, when the method decides to pass on the exception where it can handle in a better way, and that exception will be caught by an exception handler. That is what the exception handling is going to come into picture now. And the exception handler is going to process the exception object, and it's going to make sure how the execution should go forward hereafter. So this is how the exception object is created and object is handled at the outside. Fine. So once this is done, just remember, so the object which has been created, so this exception object can be created from or with the Java runtime system or mechanism, or this can be manually generated. In the program, I can put some instructions where I wanted the exception to occur. I can create the exception object manually and I can just pass it on, or the Java runtime system automatically creates the exception object. In the given scenario, both the things can happen. And so now this Java runtime exception automatically creates an exception object on these two condition, on these two scenario. The first scenario is, so whenever there is an error which is going to violate the basic rules, it is divided by 0. The rule is that no number should be divided by 0, and your program is violating such error. Hence, Java runtime will not wait for your programmer to manually generate. It is going to create, or it's going to create an exception object, and it passes on for exception handler. And any other scenarios, the constraints of Java execution environment. So something like your Java program is working in such an environment where you cannot have more than array size of 100 elements, or it cannot have 400 bytes of memory. In that case, the constraint is, so in the Java execution environment, you cannot have huge size of array size or array memories or the array elements what you want to store. So in such scenario, also the Java runtime system is going to create exception object. And when I say manually generated, so we usually do this. We will never create an exception intentionally as a programmer, but if we are doing this as a programmer, it is to report some error condition manually to the user who is using our system. I want to let him know that this is the error condition, what is going to happen. For example, if I'm asking a user to create a password, I'm saying the password should be of length 10. If he enters a password of length 8 and if he submits, I need to generate a report saying that the password should be strictly 10 characters. And so this is where I need to manually generate an exception and generate an exception report or an exception message. This is how the exception fundamental or exception is going to work in your Java program. And whenever you are going to have the Java exception in your system, it is done, or the Java exception handler is done using this following 5 keywords. These are the 5 new keywords which is going to be part of your Java program now, which will be used to handle the exception. Fine. Hence we say the Java exception handling is managed using these 5 keywords. Now at the outside we will see what these 5 keywords are going to do. But before that, let me give an abstract of when these keywords can be used. Later on with example we will see how this can be used or how this can be programmed to manage the exception efficiently in my program. And so now the statement which to be monitored for exception are contained within a try block. Hence I am going to use the try keyword now. For example, I'm going to have a division operation. Now this is the division statement or division operation which should be monitored, whether it is going to divide by 0 or whether it's not going to divide by 0. And so this is the specific statement which I need to monitor for exception is going to occur or not. Hence now this statement I need to put within a try block. And so this is the time where I'm going to use the try keyword whenever I want to put a statement or set of statement which I need to monitor. Fine. And so now if any exception occurs within the try block, it is thrown. As I told, when a method is going to get an exception, it will be thrown to a exception handler. And so now if an exception occurs within the try block, if any exception occurs outside this try block, that exception is not caught or even not thrown. Hence the exception occurs within the try block, the exception is thrown. And so now once the exception is thrown, this exception should be caught and should be processed. That is where we need to catch this exception using a catch clause. So this is where I am going to use the second keyword, catch. That is, whatever the exception has been thrown from the try block on the occurrence of an exception, that exception will be caught by the catch clause and will be processed. And whenever you want the system exception are automatically thrown, that is, whatever the exception we are going to get from the system generated exceptions, these are automatically thrown from the system. And to manually throw an exception, we are going to use the throw keyword. Just look at these two statements. Now within a try block, when the division by 0 occurs, the exception has been occurred and this exception will be automatically thrown to the catch clause. But now if no exception occurs, if still no exception occurs, but manually I want to throw an exception, that is what I told. If the user enters 9 characters, this is not an error with the program. This is not an error with an Java working system or execution system. This is an error for me as a programmer. Now I need to handle this and I need to manually throw an exception. And whenever I want to manually throw an exception, that is where I am going to use the keyword throw. And now whenever we're going to build a method, when I'm going to build a method, so method can generate few set of exceptions. That is the method what I'm executing now, or the user defined function what I'm executing now, if it is going to add some exceptions, and if it wants to pass that exception to the called function, that is whatever the calling function we are going to have, the calling function calls the method, and if this method is going to have any exception, and if it wants to throw that exception or pass on that exception for the calling function or the called method, we are going to use the throw clause, and we are going to use the throw keyword. And whenever whatever the exception occurs, fine, so there are set of statements which should be executed, because as I told you, when the exception occurs, the termination of the program may occur. So before the termination of the program, if you want to execute any set of statements, that is where I am going to put into the final clause. Hence the code that must be executed after the try block should be in the final block. This is where I am going to use the final keyword. So this is at the outside how this 5 keywords should be used. With an example, we will try to discuss all these 5 keywords. But before discussing about throws and final keyword, first we'll clearly understand these 2 keywords and its usage in Java program exception handling environment. And so now we will see how this is going to work. And so now whenever I want to have the general form of exception handling, this is what the exception handling block is going to look in general. Fine. So now I am going to have the try clause. This is going to be the try block. Now this is the place where we are going to put some code. We are just going to put some code over here. Whichever the statement you need to monitor, I am going to put between these 2 curly brackets. This is where I am creating a try block. This is what I was mentioning. The statement which you want to monitor should be inside the try block. And once this is done, I am going to have the catch clause followed immediately by the try clause. So remember this. So no statements in between should occur. So once we are going to have try, immediately at the end of try, I need to have a catch clause. Fine. So both should look like one single unit. And so now in between these 2 curly brackets, put any number of statements, but don't try to put any statements between try block and the followed catch block, or if you are going to have multiple catch blocks, even you're not supposed to have any statement in between. And so now this is the try clause, this is a catch clause, and the second catch clause, and I can have any number of statements in between now, and later on at the end, the code which I want to execute after the try block processing, I am going to put into the final block. Now this is how in general the exception handling block is going to look. So now we will see exactly how we are going to make use of try and catch first, as I mentioned, and later on we will see how the final or the finally keyword should be utilized in by the program. So first we'll understand the try and catch in depth. So now as this example is going to stand, or as this general form is going to stand, now just look at this exception type 1 and exception type 2. So what is this exception type is going to be all about? And if you remember, I had just mentioned whatever the exception we are going to have in Java, it is going to be an object. We are going to create an exception object. Every time we are going to create an exception object when the exception is going to occur. Now when I'm creating an exception object, remember it should be of some type. For example, if I want a string, I am going to have a string type as an object. If I want to have integer, I am going to have integer type. Similar to that, whenever I want to create an exception object, so remember that it should have an exception type. That is what we call this as exception type. and whatever the object we are going to create, it is going to belong to any one of this type or any one of the class. That is what we say exception class hierarchy. Or any of the exception type what you use is going to belong to the exception class hierarchy. That is what we are going to have, the exception class inheritance. Now we are going to have exception class inheritance, and remember, at the top of this inheritance hierarchy we are going to have a class called throwable class. This is the topmost class of your exception class hierarchy, the throwable class. Whatever the exception the Java is going to have, all those has been inherited by the throwable class only. Fine. So now this throwable class further has two subclasses. One is the exception class, other is an error class. And so now this throwable class has created these two subclasses as two distinct branches. I will just tell you what distinct this two is going to hold, but remember, these two are totally distinct. There is no any dependency upon these two separate subclasses of the throwable class. And so the exception is a subclass which inherits the property from throwable as a superclass, and even with the same at this point. And further, this exception class has been inherited by runtime exception. The runtime exception is going to inherit the properties of the exception classes. Now this becomes a subclass and this becomes a superclass. And now, as I told you, what distinction is going to make, just look at this exceptional condition that program should catch. Whatever the exception condition we are going to have in my program, that condition the program can catch, or if an user wants to create its own exception, we are going to use this exception class. Hence, if I want to create as a programmer my own customized exception type, I can create the subclass for this. Similarly, the subclass runtime exception is going to be, I can create my own subclass for the custom exception type. And now when I'm going to a runtime exception, it is the exception which automatically defined for the programs. For example, whichever the exception automatically created by your Java runtime system, that is going to come under the runtime exception. Whichever the user is going to create, whichever the user wants to create its own custom exception type, all those will come under the exception class. And now, when I talk about the error class, it is a catastrophic failure that cannot be handled by a program. For example, any error with the Java environment, any error which is caused in your program due to the hardware components, or any error which has been implemented or which is going to affect your program execution due to any external factor, we call this as catastrophic failures. And such errors the program cannot handle. Hence, when I'm talking about exception handling, I think this is not going to be part of your program. Hence, we are not going to discuss much about this class. But whatever the exception handling we are going to discuss, we're going to discuss about the throwable class, the exception class, and its subclasses. Fine. Hence, just look at this. I told you there's a distinct branches which I got this two. Now this is the exception what the program and the Java runtime system can handle with respect to program statements, that is being inside the program. But this is the some exception which cannot your program handle, and this is something which is outside your program. This is the one distinctness what has been created between these two sub branches. Fine. This is what you need to understand of your exception handling, and it's fundamental. Now we'll just see the example how we are going to make use of try and catch clause. But before that, just understand what is going to happen in your Java program. What happens if you are not catching any exception, if you are not making sure you're going to process the exception, what happens? Just look at this example. What happens when you're not going to make sure you're going to have any exception handling in your program? So now I'm just going to have a class. Just observe this. I'm just going to have a class. When I execute, for sure it is going to have an exception. It is going to have an exception. Now what happens upon the exception? When the exception occurs at this statement, so Java runtime immediately detects. Java runtime will immediately detects this. So though it is not under the try clause, it will be monitored by default by your Java runtime, and it is going to detect. Hence, this is what we call this as uncaught exceptions, because when the exception has been occurred, there should be a catch clause to catch the exception. If there is a catch clause, there should be a try block. Hence, no, there is no try block, there is no catch clause. Hence, we call this now as an uncaught exception. And this uncaught exception will be handled by your Java system automatically. Hence, the Java runtime detects immediately this exception. And once this is detected, it is going to construct a new exception object. When the exception occurs, the exception object is created, as I told. And once the construct of exception object is created, this exception object will be thrown for the exception handler. And once the exception has been thrown, the program which was in execution will halt or will stop the execution. The execution is not carried further. The execution of the program will be immediately halted. Hence we say the execution stops. And the exception which has been thrown will be caught by an exception handler. So right now I don't have a catch clause which can handle my exception. Hence by default the default exception handler will be used. And when this exception is caught and this is handled by the default handler of your Java system, it is going to display a string as a message describing what sort of exception it was. Because the exception has been created, it has been thrown to the default handler. The default handler, upon receiving the exception, its job now is just to print a message describing what sort of exception it was occurred and what sort it has been received. Hence now while printing, it is going to print all those message to a stack trace, and this is going to be the content of your stack trace whenever the exception is going to occur. Hence in this stack trace, just look at this stack trace, what I'm going to get. This is going to say Java dot lang, that is a language, dot arithmetic exception. Look at this, what type of exception it is? It is arithmetic exception because it is dividing by 0 is an arithmetic error. Hence we call this as arithmetic exception. This is what the default handler has been printed the description of your exception inside the stack, and it is giving the arithmetic exception in general or in specific is going to be dividing by 0. Fine. So this exception occurred where? Even it's going to give the information where it is in the demo class, under the demo, inside the main function, and in this file demo.java is the file name what I want to give, because main function is in this class and at the line number 4. Hence I'm going to line number 1, line number 2, line number 3, line number 4. That is where the exception had been occurred. This is what we are going to get in a print stack trace. And once this has been printed to the stack trace, whatever it has been pushed to the stack, I am going to print it out as the output or as a message of exception on your screen upon the execution of this program, and the program will terminate immediately. no further the execution will be carried on. The program will be terminated immediately. This is what happens when I'm going to have an exception which you're not going to handle in your program, and this is what the default handler will do. It is going to manage the stack trace, and this is the content of the stack trace which will be printed to the stack as well as on your output screen or on your console screen. Now just look at this one more example. I'm going to have class demo. Now whatever the instruction I add here, I'm going to put into a separate function. It's going to be a separate function, and the main function will call that function now. So these two statements I am putting in a function, and I'm making this function call inside the main function. Now when I execute this, the same process what I just explained is going to happen. But now look at the stack trace. Now in the stack trace, I'm just going to have the first information, that is whatever the exception I have got, and it's going to say the exception is at the function demo.function and at the line number 4, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and as well as the exception was occurred in the main function also, because the main function was the one which was calling the function, and that function had an exception. Hence we are just going to even print where the exception had been occurred in the calling function also. Hence I'm saying demo.main and in the file demo.java at the line number 7, and this was 4, so 5, 6 and 7, and this is going to be the stack content. Now just look at how it is going to put the stack. I'm just going to print it as in the stack. I'm just going to push the demo main function. Upon that I'm going to put the function, and upon that I'm going to put the type of exception, and I'm going to start printing by popping out those information. Hence you can use this stack trace whenever you want to debug your program. Using this I can exactly know where the exception had occurred and I can start debugging. Hence if you use the stack trace, it will be useful for you for debugging your program. Is it fine? And so now if you just look at this exception, now just look at this, the exception what it is going to generate, it is going to be an arithmetic exception. Now just look at this. I add an topmost class exception class called as throwable, which has been classified into two separate sectors as error and exception, and under exception I add runtime exception. Now whatever the arithmetic exception right now you have experienced, this is again the subclass of the exception class. This is again the subclass. Fine. So remember this, arithmetic exception is the subclass of exception class. And now just look at this exception. So now what happens if I'm going to use the try and catch? The example what you had just discussed, it is uncaught exception where we are going to use no try clause or even there was no any catch clause. So now if we usually wants to handle an exception, we need to use the try and catch. And why we want to handle an exception? Because the Java had a default handler. It was doing a job because it was printing the stack trace and telling me exactly where the exception was with the line number. When the Java default handler was doing the enough job, what was the use of having a exception handler using try and catch keyword? So now there are two benefits of doing this. The first benefit is allows us to fix the error. Fine. So when the exception is going to occur, instead of just printing what exception is and terminating the program, it is going to allow you to fix the error. Fine. And the second benefit is can prevent the automatic termination. As soon as the exception is going to occur, the program is going to terminate. Immediately the program will be terminated. And so now instead of having this, I can use the exception handling by myself or define the exception handler by myself and make sure I can allow the user or the programmer to fix the error when the exception occurs immediately, and even I can prevent from automatic termination. I can do these two jobs. That is where the usage of try and catch is going to come. Just look at this program. This was without try and catch clause, so which was not giving any benefit for me as a programmer, but just as a debugger it was saying me exactly where the exception was. But now just look at the same modified program now. I'm just going to say in D comma E, and inside the try clause, I'm putting these two statements. That means these are the statements which should be under monitoring. Fine. And with this, for just to show you how this is going to work, we have put an print statement or a message saying I am after exception, and I'm going to, after immediately the try clause, I'm going to have the catch clause, and this catch clause is going to have the type of exception is arithmetic exception, and the object name of the exception is E. Now this can be of any object name, whatever the name you want you can use over here, but the type of exception should be the class which I've just shown you, which is the subclass of exception. And in this catch clause, I'm just going to print the message as value of D is 0, and after this catch clause, I'm going to print the statement as after catch statement. Now when I execute this program, what is going to happen? So I'm going to be at this line, everything is fine. I will enter the try clause. So when I say D equals 0, everything is still fine. When I reach at this statement and when I say 42 divided by 0, this is where the exception is going to occur. On occurrence of this exception, this try clause will immediately creates an exception. It creates an exception, and what type of exception it is? It is an arithmetic exception what is going to create, and this arithmetic exception will be immediately thrown to the catch clause. Now just look at this, the control was here, immediately the control has been transferred to the catch clause. Fine. This means the control had not executed this statement, and this statement will not be executed. Upon jumping from try to catch, upon completion of the catch clause, the control will not get back to try, because catch is not a function call, it is a clause. It is a block of statement. Hence, this will not return back and execute the remaining statement. Immediately, I am going to jump, and this statement will not be executed now. And the catch is going to receive the type of exception, and is going to print a statement value of D is 0. And the control will come at this statement. Now just look at this difference. So if there was no try and catch, then the default message from the stack would have been printed. First point. Second point is the execution have been immediately terminated. But just look at this. I'm not immediately terminating first point. The control has been come at the next statements which is in line. I'm going to execute the statements after the catch clause. Remember this is the advantage what I'm going to have. The second benefit is, so instead of printing the message from the stack, now I can handle this. I can handle what type of message I want to print, or I can format the entire thing what should happen between this catch clause. This is what happens when I'm going to execute this program. The value of D is 0, and after catch statement. Now this statement is never executed because the exception has been occurred just before this statement. Now, this is the usage of try and catch clause. And so few things which you want to know when you're going to use the try and catch clause. So remember, a try and its respective catch statement form a unit. So starting from try keyword until the end of this catch, we consider this as one single unit. And for this reason I told you, do not insert any statement in between try and the catch clause. And the scope of the catch clause is with the immediately preceding try statement. the scope of this catch statement will be always under the immediately preceding try clause or the try block. Hence, so this catch will be attached with this try block. Hence, you cannot have a catch statement alone. It should be always with a try block statement and immediately followed without having any statement in between, and even you're not supposed to use any semicolon over here. That is what the scope of catch clause will be always attached with its immediately preceding try statement. And a catch statement cannot catch an exception thrown by another try statement. Now, if I'm going to have one more try statement after this, and even if the try statement or the block is throwing the same type of error, the catch is not going to catch those exception object, because this catch is attached with this try, and this will always receive the exception object only from this try block. And the statement that is to be protected by the try must be surrounded by the curly braces. You should always use the curly braces. Something like if you are using a for loop, and if the for loop contains only one statement to be in the loop, you can use a curly brackets or you can eliminate the curly brackets. But that's not the case in the try and catch. You are going to have one statement, or you're going to have multiple statement. You need to make sure you're going to always put it as a block of statements between the curly brackets itself. Even the same with the catch statement. This is the few things which you need to understand before using try and catch. And now just look at this. The benefit is, the second benefit is, so instead of just printing one single statement, I wanted to continue the execution. Fine, I just wanted to continue the execution, so until I am not going to terminate it myself. That is what this program is going to do. Just look at this, a random number generation program. Right now, don't bother about all the statements which we'll discuss further. And so now in the main function, I'm going to have int a equals 0, b equals 0 and c equals 0, and I'm generating a random number or a random object r. So now this object, upon calling the next int, this will give me the next random number. And now the random number can be anything starting from 0 to any maximum value. By default it is going to have 1000, and starting from 0 to 1000 it can give you any random number, for example. Or we'll just keep it simple, starting from 0 to 100. We'll just keep it as 100 now. And so now when I say r.nextInt, it can give any random number starting from 0 to 100, for example. And so now when I execute this loop, now this loop is going to work for 32,000 times. So just forget about this loop now. I'm going to have a try block. In the try block, I'm giving a random number for b. Now this b can be 0 or b can be any number. Now if this b is 0 or any number, it doesn't matter, because nowhere I am using this for the division operation. But this c I am using for division operation. If c is going to be a non-zero value, no exception will occur here. If the random number is going to be 0 for the value c, that is where the exception is going to occur. And when the exception occurs here, I am going to throw that exception to the catch clause, and this catch clause will print a message as division by 0, and I am going to say a equals 0 and print the value of a as 0 and get back to the for loop. So get back to the for loop, and I pick the next random for the b, next random for the c, and keep on continuing this loop. Is whether the exception occurs or not occurs, the loop will keep on continuing for 32,000 times. This is the use of using the try and the catch clause. You can handle the exception by yourself, and you can continue the execution until what you have planned for. This is how we are going to use the try and the catch clause. Fine. So now with this, the description what I am putting here, This is the description what I wanted. Now in your catch clause, if you want to print the same description what the stack trace contains, you can still do that. Instead of having system out.println division by 0, so print it as exception, say it as exception, a message, and the description of the object is going to be exception java.lang arithmetic exception, so which is going to be divided by 0. So if you remember this statement, I had put the statement at the time of stack trace. So in that stack trace, it is going to print at what line number, at what function, at what file name. But now I just wanted to have the description of the exception error. As now this object, whatever I have been passing as the name, now this object contains the description of the exception of what has been occurred. And so I'm printing my message and I'm printing the exception of the object also. And so now I'm just going to, if I execute this program, I will get only the output as division by 0. If I want more description about your error or the exception what your Java gives, you can print the object itself. Fine. This is how we're going to give the exception with description. So now just look at this multi-catch clause. The examples what I've just shown you, it was with only single catch clause. A try block had only one single catch clause attached with the try block. But now you can have multiple catch for one single try block. This is possible in your Java program. One single try block can have multiple catches. But don't put this catch as a nested catch inside one more catch clause. This is not allowed. Right now this is not allowed. I am going to have one try block, two catch statements attached with this try block. Hence the vice versa is not possible. A single catch cannot have two try blocks. This is fine. So now just look at this. What happens if I'm going to have multiple catch clause and how this is going to work. So now I'm just going to have a main function. In the main function, I'm going to accept an argument, that is the parameter what I pass while executing a Java program. Fine. I'm going to have int a equals argument string dot length. If I'm going to pass one parameter, so I'm just going to have a as 1. If I am passing 0 parameters or no parameter, a will be 0. If I pass 2 parameter, a will be 2. And so now the value of a depends upon how many parameters you're going to pass. Fine. Hence I'm going to print how many parameters have been passed, and int b equals 42 divided by a. Now just observe this. Now this value of a can be anything. It can be 0 if I am not passing any parameter for the main function from the command line argument. And this a value can be non-zero value if I am passing any parameter. Now if a is 0, I am going to have an exception here. If the a is not 0, then there is no any exception here. And now if there is an exception here, these statements are not executed, immediately the control will be shifted. So to which catch clause is going to be shifted? It is an arithmetic exception, and this is going to match that. So this catch clause will match with the exception what has been created now, because this is not matched. Array index out of bound exception is not matched. This is the exact match of exception, and this catch will be used and prints the message divided by 0 and description of an exception. Fine. That is what happens when I'm going to execute the program as multi-catch without passing any parameter. There is no any command line parameter now. Hence a is 0. Hence a becomes 0. I'm printing a as 0, and dividing by 0 causes me exception. Out of these two catch clauses, looking at the parameter or the exception type, this is going to match exactly, and this catch clause will be used to print the message divided by 0 and the description about the error what has been occurred. and once this is hence one catch clause is executed, the control will never look into the other catch clause of the same try block. It will never look into other catch clauses, and the control will come out of all the catch clauses now immediately and prints the next statements as after try or catch blocks. This is fine. So now in the other case, what if I pass some parameter like this? While I'm executing the class, I'm going to pass a command line argument as test argument. This is what it was missing over here. When I pass this, there is one parameter or one string, and the length of the string is going to be 1 now, because there are only one string in this array, and so I'm going to have a value is going to be 1. I'm going to print the value of a as 1, and b equals 42 divided by 1. Now there's no any exception here. There's no arithmetic exception, and the control will come here. So c of empty bound equals 1, hence it is going to create an array size of 1. Hence now what is the array bound available? It's only 0. The c of 0 is only the legal bound what you can use. Even if it is c of 1, it is going to be array out of bound. If it is c of 2, even it's going to be array out of bound. Hence now at this statement there is no any exception. But when I come at this statement, so c of 42 equals 99. C of 42 is illegal because it is array out of bound, and an exception has been occurred, and the type of exception object which has been created will not match with the arithmetic exception, but it's going to match with array index out of bounds exception object. This is going to have exact match, and now this catch clause will be executed, and this catch clause is not executed, and only this catch clause is executed. I'm going to print the output as array index out of bound and print the message. Description is going to be java.lang. Now this was the exception type in this case, and this is the exception type is going to be, and I'm going to print for what value I'm going to get an exception in this case. And once this is done, so no more catch clause is executed, I'm going to print the statement as after try or catch block. This is how the multi catch clause is going to work. So now an important point to note, so before you're going to make use of multiple catch clause, that is, now when I'm using multiple catch clause, the type of exception can be the superclass type as well as the subclass type. It can be of any type. So now if you remember, exception was a class and arithmetic exception was the subclass of it. Fine. And now whatever the exception has been generated, if it is arithmetic exception object, it can be also referred by the exception superclass. This is where the superclass reference variable can hold the reference of the subclass object also. So with this, now just look at this, what happens. Now at this case, when the exception has been occurred, now which is going to match it exactly? This is going to match exactly with arithmetic exception, but also matches with the exception class also. Remember this, because exception is the superclass of this arithmetic exception. If the exception matches with the arithmetic exception, it should also match with the exception. Remember this. And now once the division by 0 is going to occur, so this catch clause is matched with respect to the order, and I'm going to print this as the output. And now this catch clause is not executed. So this means on any given instance, whatever the statement is going to be, we are going to always execute the same catch clause. Now this catch clause will be never executed for any given instance. Whenever there is an arithmetic exception, every time this catch clause is only called. Hence the control will never reach this exception. Hence if I execute this code, you're going to get a syntax error stating unreachable code, because this catch clause will be never reached. Hence, we are going to end with unreachable code. So now, will this state that we should never make use of the superclass and subclass catch exception type? If you think like that, it's wrong. You can use, and by using such a way, if you want to avoid unreachable syntax error, you need to swap it. You need to make sure the subclass exception is going to be the first catch clause and followed by the superclass catch clauses. That is what a subclass must come before its superclass in the series of catch statements. That is what you need to make an note, and be careful when you're using multiple catch clauses and you're going to use the multiple catch clause with the superclass and the subclass. So make sure you maintain this order. If the order is right with the subclass, then the superclasses, then you can have such type of multiple catch clause. Now this is what you need to understand from this session. That's the fundamental of exception handling and how we are going to make use of the try and the catch clauses. In the next session, we'll discuss about the other keywords. Thank you.